All right,
Episode
we're
16.
live off the bench. Episode 15. Javon, take it.
Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to Off the Bench. I am Javon Tavares, one third of the triumvirate known as Off the Bench. We have the distinguished Kevin Cornegay, Mr. North Carolina Tar Heel himself, Michigan Wolverine football fan, faithful San Francisco 49er. And then we have Mr. Sean Dustin. You can see him rocking the New York Yankees gear. Didn't really work out this evening, but he is a diehard Yankees fan. He is a diehard Dallas Cowboy fan, Big D. And he is a diehard LeBron James fan. Fellas, how are you this evening?
Oh, man.
Blessed.
Blessed. Great night. Looking forward to the weekend. Big games, baseball playoffs, NBA training camp, college basketball training camp. So we're ready to go.
This is the best time of year, fellas. We have Major League Baseball in the playoffs. We have college football in full swing. We have NFL football in full swing. We have the NBA coming. We have NBA college basketball. And it's autumn. It's getting a little cooler. It's getting darker early. Mm-hmm. And we get to we get to throw our hoodies on, our beanies, all our accessories. This is the best time of year, guys, is it not?
It is. It is.
The best time. This is the best time. Listen, I always look forward to fall for a couple different reasons. And it was number one, it signified the start of school, because let's be honest, we all look forward to that summer break. And once we got to that summer break, there's only so many things you can do on summer break, man, until you start feeling like, man, you know what? It's time to go back to school. Not necessarily for the schoolwork, but it's time to go back to school for the work, if you know what I mean. If you know what I mean. Sports, as we mentioned, all the sports seem to coalesce right around this time. My favorite time of year, fellas. So let's jump right into it. One of our favorite individuals, one Lavar Ball, continues to take the unconventional route and decides to buck the trend or the status quo of how normal college basketball players get to the NCAA. He pulled his son, LaMelo Ball, who's 16 years old and a junior. He pulled him from the famed Chino Hills High School, which Lavar Ball made famous with the Ball brothers. LaMelo will not be returning to Chino Hills. Instead, he will be homeschooled, and he will be focusing on developing for his career at UCLA. He's already signed to UCLA. I believe he's the number 17 recruit in the ESPN 300 basketball. He's also a 5-star recruit. So, gentlemen, I'm going to ask you straight up. Do you like this move? LaVar Ball pulling his son from high school and homeschooling him and allowing him to focus on basketball as opposed to being in high school at Chino Hills. And I'll start with you, Sean, because I know you have been one of LaVar Ball's biggest fans. You seem to love every move he makes. You've never been critical of LaVar Ball at all. So we'll start with you.
Look, obviously, there's a lot of satirical commentary from my guy, Javon Tavares. I've obviously been a critic of LaVar Ball, and mainly because of some of the comments that he's made to kind of what I feel to put a bullseye on his children's back. I do feel, obviously, as a supportive father and somebody who obviously puts in the work to make sure that they're prepared on the court and being able to handle themselves off the court. You can't argue with results. However, I don't necessarily agree with his methodology. Some of the things he said, obviously, over the past several the days and the week is that, I'm going to make him the best basketball player ever. Okay. I'm not even sure he's going to be as good as Lonzo and the best player ever. He's obviously contradicted himself in saying that, Melo is the weakest of the three players and he may not make it to the league. And now he's saying the best player ever. There's been some flip-flop, even in his own camp. And this really comes down to issues with Coach Dennis Lattimore and the way that he constructs the team, some of the favoritism that's on the team, and there's infighting. And despite being a 30-3 team. And my problem with this is that preparation for the next level is very important to me. Going from high school to college to the pros. And you look at even some of the most successful teams in the league, i.e. the second team in the league in the NBA, the Cleveland Cavaliers, having gone to the finals, and they're obviously being quote unquote infighting and some disagreements within the team. I think that's something that you have to be able to navigate as a player, dealing with differences with coaches, differences with their style, in addition to the fact that infighting happens even in the NBA. It's happened at the highest level with championship teams, not just championship caliber teams, but championship teams with the Lakers, obviously with Shaq and Kobe, and even there being disputes within the team. Professionals know how to overcome this sort of thing. And I get it if you want to make sure that you want to escape the politics, and you obviously can't argue with some of the unconventional decisions that he's made for his children. But I really don't feel that this is in the best interest in terms of his development, not just as a player going into a profession, but as the individual. These are life lessons, having to get along with different personalities, having to aspire to be great, even though there's obstacles, coaches, different styles, different personalities. These are things you can't run away from. These are things that you have to embrace. And even though it's not the same sport, I will play the devil's advocate and say, the Williams sisters, as far as their father, and not even competing at the amateur level at the same competition that some of the pros produced, but being able to reach a level that was at the elite level and having trained them himself and producing top products. So it's not that this has been unseen in sports, but I don't think with his brothers and the success that they've had, and even being a top recruit, it's hard for professional teams who are recruiting him right now before he's even in the pros at the going into the collegiate level. They need to be able to see the product on the floor against elite competition. And I think you're kind of just putting him at a disadvantage in that standpoint versus seeing him play at a high level, not at AAU level, not in these other leagues, but against elite competition, having to overcome adversity on the court. People really need to see that, and the pros are scouting that now. And that's really my feeling about it.
Kev, give me your take on whether you agree with Lavar taking LaMello out. I also want you to touch on whether you feel like this move is going to hinder his potential when he gets to the next level at UCLA.
Well, let me get this straight. Correct me if I'm wrong. So Lavar Ball is taking LaMello. He's going to homeschool him, not for educational purposes, but for basketball purposes. So what you're telling me is that he's going to homeschool him, not because he believes he can give him a better education while at home, but because he's upset with the new head coach at Chino Hills, and he disagrees with how he's going to be running the program. Is that what you're telling me? Evidently, Lavar wanted some certain players to be added to the roster of this Chino Hills basketball team, and the new head coach said, no, that's not how we're going to run things. And now all of a sudden, Lavar is pulling his son off the team. So it doesn't sound like he's doing this for educational purposes. I digress. I could care less how Lavar runs his household. I can care less how he raises his children. I don't care how, he's treating his wife, so on and so forth. I do care about how he treats people outside of his home. And he's been less than stellar when it comes to that. In terms of LaMelo's development, you said it first, Javon. And I'm a big-time college basketball fan. So obviously North Carolina Tar Heels is my favorite team. So I pay attention to high school recruiting. In fact, I probably pay attention similar to how you pay attention to the high school football recruiting, Javon. So I have 2 or 3 subscriptions to these sites. I mean, every 3 weeks I'm getting, looking at my bank statement, $8 come out of my account, some subscription or whatnot. So I pulled LaMelo's rankings from the top 4 recruiting rankings that we have here in the States. ESPN has him rated number 17. Actually, number 7. He's number 7 on ESPN top 60. But he's 17 with Rivals. He's 17 with Scout. And he's number 17 with 247 Sports, which I believe is the best recruiting service that they have online. What that tells you is this. And normally at this stage of their career, he is a rising junior, class of 2019. A lot of the guys you see in the NBA at this stage in their career are top 10 recruits. In fact, a lot of the guys that you see currently in the NBA as freshmen and sophomores, if they were able to reclassify, they would have been top 10 players. So he's already behind the 8 ball when it comes to his development. Now, Sean touched on something very important. All right. He needs to get better. And the only way he gets better is competition. 5-on-5, organized, sanctioned basketball events. And this is an opportunity for LaMello to run a team without his brothers. Remember, the first 2 years that he played high school, he played with Lonzo and LiAngelo. So this is an opportunity for him to have his own team, cultivate his own team, run his own squad. He's going to play point guard, a chance for you to make your teammates better, a chance to get from out of Lonzo's shadow, LiAngelo's shadow, and you have 2 years by yourself to run your team, to take Chino Hills back to the playoffs, perhaps get to the state finals, so on and so forth. I think that would help in his development to be able to run a team without his brothers, make those around him better. So I do think it could hurt him. If Lavar is talking about he's just going to train him, and by the way, Lavar Ball is not a very good coach, but if he's talking about he's just going to train him by himself, right, without any type of not the competition at 24-Hour Fitness, not over at LA Fitness, okay, not over at Cal Fit. I'm not talking about pickup basketball or AAU. I'm talking about sanctioned CIF events. CIF has a very, very good high school basketball competition, especially
Indeed.
down there in Southern California.
Indeed.
So he'll be playing with top flight recruits, so on and so forth. If Lavar thinks he's going to get better without him actually competing against other guys, he's going to sell him short. So again, taking him out, and there's been guys who have been homeschooled. I'll give you an example. Justin Jackson, Sacramento Kings small forward now. He was with Carolina, helped Carolina win a title last year. He was homeschooled in high school, but his high school still had a traveling basketball team, so he was able to compete. He still made the McDonald's All-American game, okay? You saw him at these tournaments, so on and so forth. He was homeschooled, but they still had a team. I do think it would be in LaMelo's best interest if somehow he was able to continue to get competition. That's the only way you're going to get better, is to get out on the court. Yeah.
Can I ask you a question though? I mean,
yeah.
What if you don't like the league that you're playing in? If you don't like the refs, can't you just get them thrown out the game though?
Hey, hey, if you're Lavar Ball, I guess you can. But the fact is, he can't do that in high school. So maybe that's another reason why he wants to pull him off the court. It's just one of those classic cases. I deal with this with my 3-year-old son. Okay, when he gets upset, he wants to play basketball with his older brothers. Okay, and they're done playing basketball. So they want to go into the room and play video games. My 3-year-old will go into the room, take his joystick, okay, and won't let anybody start the game. He'll start a fuss. No, give me this. He'll take the joystick, and now they can't play multiplayer together because of my 3-year-old. He's throwing a fit. He's upset because they don't want to play basketball anymore. That's what this sounds like. I mean, he's not doing it for educational purposes. If he were to say, hey, I want to give him a better education at home, I believe that I can teach him better at home. Okay, cool. Fair enough. I know individuals who homeschool their kids now, but he's doing this because he's mad at the new coach. And remember, he got the old coach fired, a guy that he appointed. He went to the administration and said, this guy needs to be the head coach. The administration listened, and then he gets in a fight with that guy. At halftime, remember, he goes into the locker room, starts changing plays, changing strategies. He gets him fired, and then a new coach comes in, and he's not happy. Lavar, are you the one that wants to coach the team? That's the question. Do you really want to be the coach of the team? And they didn't hire you. So we'll see what happens.
Excellent points, gentlemen. Excellent points. I will say this, however. A lot of times recruits will wait until that last minute to make a decision in terms of what school they want to attend. In LaMelo's case, he's already committed to UCLA. So while I understand for his personal development, it would be to his benefit if he continued to play high school basketball. And Kev, you excellent point about the CIF being an excellent hotbed for talent, particularly in Southern California. There's schools like Mater Dei, there's schools like Dominguez Hills that are always tough schools. So you're absolutely right there. But he already has a scholarship to UCLA. Maybe he doesn't need to do the same things that some of these other kids need to do, kids that are still looking for scholarships. Now, granted, they're talented, they're going to get scholarships, but they don't know whether they're going to be going to play for John Calipari at Kentucky.
Now, remember,
they don't know whether they're going to be. They don't know whether they're going to be going to Kansas to play. They don't know where they're going to Arizona. LaMello already knows that he's going to UCLA.
Remember, though, his eligibility might be in question. Didn't they come out with a shoe for LaMello? They just released a shoe. Is that right?
Yeah.
Yeah, they did. He released a shoe for his 16th birthday. He did release it. He did release a shoe. So now
let's say they have eligibility issue, which Lavar Ball already said he doesn't care about that at all. All right.
But I believe how it works with the NCAA is if you're already making money off of something before you actually get to the NCAA, I believe you have a right to, I wouldn't say necessarily continue that, but I don't think they punish you for that beforehand. So if he already has a shoe out there and he has a deal, I'm not sure if they would hold it against him. I think I'll have to check into that because I don't want to misspeak, but I thought I heard if you already had some type of business or some type of endorsements or something like that before you get to college, then there's something that could work out. But as you mentioned, Lavar already said, hey, if we're not good with the NCAA, we're not good with the NCAA. They're not my boss. So anyways, good points. As always, Lavar Ball always keeps in. But staying with the theme of basketball, NBA season is right around the corner. We're knocking on the door of what I think is going to be a tremendous NBA season. One of the things that has come under fire over the past 10, 15 years has been the NBA All-Star Game. So there was a shakeup with the format, and I happen to like the new format myself. So is the fans are going to continue to be able to vote for the starters, and then the coaches, I believe, are going to pick the reserves.
Yes.
And then what will happen is the top two vote getters in the East and the West, those individuals will have an opportunity to pick teams. So like we used to do out on the playground. Now, I think that dynamic is going to be interesting, right? because there's going to be a lot of players that are going to be in their feelings if they don't get picked by,
Yes, sir.
right? So this interesting dynamic, particularly teammates, multiple teammates from the same team that perhaps don't end up on the same team. How does that dynamic work out? So I think it's an interesting wrinkle. I am of the opinion personally that the basketball is still going to be subpar until you get to the fourth quarter, because no matter who's on what team, you're going to have guys that are playing no defense and attempting alley-oops from 3/4 court for the first 3.5 quarters, and then it gets a little bit more serious into the fourth quarter. So regardless of the format, I think that's what you're still going to get. However, I think the shakeup is welcome. So, Kev, I'll start with you. First question, do you like the new format? And secondly, do you think that it'll produce a better product in terms of an all-star game?
I absolutely love the new format because it's full disclosure. Now you get to really see how guys feel about your game, and you're able, it's just like when we were kids and we would pick, our five. Okay, and you get picked last, you're like, wow, this cat really feels this. Another thing that I love about it is that, when you were younger, when we were friends, you used to always want to go at your friends. I mean, you want to compete against them. Now, of course, when we got older, you would bring your 4 or your 5 to the park and you would compete against other guys, so on and so forth. But I mean, if it's just y'all, you know what I'm saying, 2-on-2, 3-on-3, you always love to compete against your best friends, and see who can get the better of who. We see that today in Madden and NBA 2K and things of that nature. So I love the new format.
Kev, I'll tell and I hate to interject, but I'll tell a quick story about back when we were playing at Foothill High School. We were playing at Foothill High School varsity, and Kevin and I are so competitive that we were in a drill. I believe it was like a box out drill.
Box out drill.
It was a box out drill. And literally, the coach blew the whistle. Everybody stopped. And him and I are still boxing each other out, jockeying for position 15 seconds after the whistle blew. And Coach Wall, I remember Coach Wall was our coach. Coach Wall is sitting there looking at us like, what the hell are y'all doing, man? But we wanted it so bad. So that adds a little bit of context to what you're saying about wanting to beat your friends.
Absolutely. Just you want to compete with them. And so, look, I give a lot of credit to Adam Silver and also Chris Paul, the head of the Players Union. But Adam Silver knew he had to do something because in the West, the best players are playing in the West.
Mm-hmm.
And even though it's still going to be 12-12 East and West, you still didn't want a heavy loaded roster on the West with all the heavy hitters. So this is a way where you can kind of balance out the two teams. Also, it's going to be a lot of fun to see a guy like Steph Curry go at it with Klay Thompson, or possibly watch Klay Thompson check Steph Curry in a game type atmosphere, things that we haven't seen before. I mean, we've seen LeBron and D Wade, go at one another, but and when we've seen Russell Westbrook and Kevin Durant go at one another, but there's other pairs of guys on the same team. We haven't really seen them go at one another, and we'll get an opportunity to see that with this new format. I do think it'll be a splash for the first couple of years. So I'm expecting a competitive game, this All-Star game, maybe next. This one's going to be in Los Angeles. I think they're really going to want to put on a show, and they're going to really want to be competitive with this game. Of course, new things always get old, and they'll have to continue to try to change some things about it. Eventually, it'll get to the point where we're seeing 195, to 190 and things of that nature. That's coming down the line. But I think for the first couple of years, it'll be pretty competitive. It'll be exciting. And it's like, I want to see Draymond check Klay Thompson. I want to see him throw Steph Curry's, layup into the stands. That's the type of stuff that I want to see. I want to see these because they only compete like this in practice, and we don't get an opportunity to see it. Okay, when they're in practice scrimmaging. But now we'll get a chance to see it, and I'm very excited. I think they did a good job. I know guys like Stephen A., they're not sold on it. I know Javon earlier in the week, you didn't know about it either, but I think that it's a good change up, and I think the fans will appreciate it.
Well, I'll tell you what, Kev. I think with Draymond, we actually have seen him compete with his teammates and yell at his teammates and cuss at his teammates on the floor. So I think there is a good sample size of what he would look like in a competitive atmosphere with his teammates. I'm just saying, we've seen it. We've seen him kick people in the groin. We've seen him kick people in the groin consistently, and we've seen him, cuss Kevin Durant out, guising as motivation. That guy's a whole nother story. But Sean, I know you are a huge NBA fan. I know you expressed, some satisfaction with this new format. Give me your opinion on whether you think this is going to be something that has some staying power, and do you think it's going to be entertaining and is going to produce a better product than what we've seen the past couple of years?
I have a kind of interesting take on it. I think it really comes down to the fact that over the years, as you can see with the CBA, as you can see with the way that the NBA is going, players like LeBron James, Kevin Durant, being able to exercise leverage against I won't say the establishment, but against the respective franchises, which is kind of against establishment, the players have a lot more power than they used to have. And the way that the product is presented on the floor. And Adam Silver cannot control at all whether players want to play a serious game or not in an exhibition game. You're going into the second half of a season. Some players go into the first half of the season hobbled. They still want to make sure that their fans get a great performance and get to see them without really risking injury. In an exhibition format, this game doesn't have the impact like in Major League Baseball, who hosts the World Series and things of that nature. So without those kind of criteria involved in the NBA game, I don't think you're going to see a competitive format, because a lot of people are feeling like this is a vacation time. This is a time that I want to be able to do things with my family. I obviously want to be able to give the fans a good show, but you don't want to risk injury. Obviously, as fans of the game, we want to see them play at a high level. We want to see this high level of competition where there's a stake involved. We get to finally see the best players play together. But the reality of it is that's not going to be the case. Regardless of what the commissioner is pushing, regardless of what we want to see as fans, what you're going to see is players having fun, being able to actually be friends instead of competitors, relax and have a great and have a enjoyable show for the fans. And really, the reality of it is, for most people, even celebrities, this is a time where there's a lot of parties on the weekend. Different players, whoever the hosting player is having a big kind of show. People are probably showing up a little bit inebriated or not ready to play at a high level, or they're just enjoying the weekend with their family. So let's just be real about it. So I enjoy the new format because goes back to playground basketball. It goes on to, there are politics involved. And the reality of it is, we watch this Twitter stuff. We watch this Instagram stuff. Hey, is a guy wearing a hat that's throwing shade against another player? We want to see these players choose who they want to choose. Yeah. Even though the fans are saying who's the best players, who are you picking? I don't think LeBron's picking Kyrie Irving. I don't care if he's available. I don't care if he gives them a better chance to win. These guys don't like each other, man. Steph Curry's going to draft LeBron, or LeBron drafts Steph Curry before he's going to get Kyrie Irving. And it gives these guys a chance to play with players that they never get a chance to play with. And that is a part about the fun. players want to play with players that they never get to play with, whether they made the Olympic squad or not, whether you see them and they played against AAU or on high school teams against each other and we don't know the backstories. They want to play with the best players, and they want to be like, I want to have some control over it. And I think this gets back to the players having a level of control that they've never had. This goes back to, what can Adam Silver control? He can't control the effort of players, but he can control the format. And at least they're doing something. So I'm happy about it. I think it's going to be fun. I think you're going to see some exciting stuff. There's going to be some exciting side stories as a result of it. Who chooses who didn't choose who, what's happening on social network. And it engages the fans and it engages the players. And if you can engage the players, you usually have a more passionate product.
I think we must give Adam Silver a tremendous amount of credit. It seems like every move that he makes in regards to the NBA is the right move. Yes, and while I don't think that the product is going to produce truly what we want to see in terms of the quality of the game, for points that you made earlier, or for reasons that you made earlier, it's a vacation. Guys don't want to risk injury. And they do want to provide an entertaining brand of basketball in the first half and up through the third quarter until it gets competitive. That's my only argument, is that I wish it got a little bit more competitive earlier in the game. But again, it's an all-star game. It's a tribute for the fans. It's a tribute for the game of basketball. And as such, we do have to understand that it's not going to be the NBA Finals. But I think this new format, this new tweak, does bring some additional interest. So it'll be interesting to see how it plays out. And I can't wait until All-Star Weekend to peep it. So transitioning to the NFL, if you can believe it or not, we reached the quarter pole 4 games in, and it seems like the season just started. It just started. We're 4 games in. Another additional, 12 games, and the season's going to be over for some people. And then you're going to have other teams that will be transitioning into the playoffs. But as we talk about the quarter pole, I'd like to get your surprises and your biggest disappointments when it comes to teams in the NFL. So one NFC team and one AFC team each in terms of a surprise, pleasant surprise. And I'd like for each of you to give one disappointment for each conference as well. And I'll start with Kev on this one.
Well, my surprise team in the NFC is the Los Angeles Rams. Remember, when the season started, we didn't know what we were going to get out of Jared Goff. I mean, last year in training camp, he couldn't even take a snap from center. There were times where, seriously, he came from the air raid offense at Cal, and he hadn't been under center for a long time. So in training camp, he's struggling getting a snap from center, struggling calling plays. And then I think last year mid-season around week 7 or 8, they shut him down for the rest of the year. And I don't know if it was necessarily due to injury or not. So coming into training camp this year, we're trying to figure out, did Philly make the better decision? Or did the Rams make the wrong decision? Not drafting Wentz, going with Jared Goff. And this year, he's 7 touchdowns, 1 interception. Passer rating, he's at around 112, 113, I believe. And just got done beating the Dallas Cowboys on the road. I don't want to talk about it. Yeah, right. He's been tremendous. I mean, he's seeing the field. He's making the right reads. He's making the checks at the line of scrimmage. They've really taken the training wheels off of him, and he's all systems go right now. He has a running game. Todd Gurley having a fantastic season. He's averaging about 4.5 yards a carry right now, 4 touchdowns. So he has that big pin in the backfield, and the offensive line has been playing well. Obviously, defensively, they're ranked around top 25, I believe. I think they're 23rd as far as defense is concerned. But they have Wade Phillips, a tremendous defensive coordinator.
A legend.
Absolute legend, who's able to hide some things schematically. And then up front, they got the big hoss, Aaron Donald, who's a Hall of Fame defensive tackle. I really like what the Rams have done. And remember, they have the youngest coach in the league. Sean McVay.
Sean McVay.
And 31 years old. And like I said, he has just taken Jared Goff, taking him to another level. The development, I'm really impressed with that. So they're sitting at 3-1. That would be my surprise team. My disappointing team in the NFC is the Dallas Cowboys. I know they're sitting at 2-2, but in the 2 losses, they haven't looked very good. I'm concerned about the Ezekiel Elliott case that's going to be heard. Is that coming up next week, Sean?
Yeah, it is coming up. I know they were supposed to have a hearing coming up as far as where they were. The NFL have filed an appeal, and we're going to find out if Ezekiel Elliott's going to be able to play the rest of the season, which it looks like he is. However, they're going through the legal rigmarole and making sure that any appeal that there is, that at least on paper they're fighting it.
Okay. Yeah, Dallas. Yeah, I picked them to go to the Super Bowl and beat Green Bay in the championship game on the strength of having those 3 amigos, Dak Prescott, Ezekiel in the backfield with that big offensive line, and Dez on the outside. A lot of people are questioning if Dez is finished. Does he have anything left? Seems like he can't get off the bump and run coverage at this point, in his career. And defensively, they haven't made the improvements that, I wanted to see out of them. But, there's a lot of football left. Obviously, if Ezekiel is able to play the entire season, I fully expect the Cowboys to be able to regroup, win the NFC East, and do some damage in the playoffs. But that would be my disappointment in the NFC. Am I going AFC too?
Yes, sir. AFC as well.
Right. My surprise team in the AFC. Well, let me start off with my disappointed. The 2 teams I'm really disappointed in is the Raiders and the Patriots. Let me start with the Raiders because I'm local here in the Bay Area. Derek Carr hurt again. That's big. I thought their run game would be improved with beast mode, but they're 28th in the league rushing the football. Offensively, they're 29th. That's with Derek Carr at the quarterback position. They have a great offensive line. Defensively, they're just not able to get big stops. They're giving up a lot of yardage on the defensive side of the football. But I'm really concerned because if Derek Carr is going to miss, they're projected 2 to 6 weeks. If he's out 4 or 5 weeks, that's their season. Kansas City's 4-0. Denver's sitting at 3-1. They don't have a lot of weeks to play with. The Raiders were a team that I thought would get to the AFC Championship game and face New England. New England is my other disappointing team. They're sitting, I think they won tonight, so they're at 3-2. But since week 2, they haven't looked very good. Defensively, they're dead last, I believe, in total yards given up. So they've allowed, I think, 4 300-yard passers in succession. They're not getting off the field on 3rd down, which is preventing Tom Brady from doing the damage that he can do on the offensive end. So I'm a little concerned about the Raiders. I do think the Patriots will be able to get things into gear as we head into the second quarter of the season. My surprise team for the AFC is the Kansas City Chiefs. They're sitting at 4-0, and it really has to do with Alex Smith and his development. All of a sudden, this guy's throwing the football down the field. 12th year in the league. He's always been 10 yards past the line of scrimmage. He's not throwing it past 10 yards. The check down guy, the check down king, he's getting the ball down the field. And let me say this about Andy Reid. Philadelphia. Huge mistake getting rid of Andy Reid. He is a great coach, a phenomenal coach. Yes, he has not won the big game. I think he's only been to the Super Bowl once, and they lost in a close defeat to the New England Patriots. But Andy Reid has been able to turn a guy like Alex Smith into a dangerous, dangerous weapon, a guy who I believe when they get to the playoffs, I think he can do damage in the playoffs. They trust each other. He loves the system that he's running and just the development that we've seen from Alex Smith. They're sitting at 4-0. I expected the Raiders to be the kingpins of that division, but that would be my surprise and then my 2 disappointments.
Sean.
In the AFC.
Sean.
Yes, sir.
Give me your surprise and disappointment in the NFC first, And then you can follow up with your surprise and disappointment in the AFC.
Okay. My surprise team in the NFC is actually the Philadelphia Eagles. In a brutal conference in the NFC East, you have a much improved Redskins team. You have a Giants team. You have a Giants team that's taking a step back. You have a lot of teams beating each other up and that are playing each other early. I'm really impressed with the fact that absent for 3 games, an all-pro defensive tackle, Fletcher Cox, even though they've given up a lot of points in the fourth quarter without having a pass rush when teams usually get worn down, they've still won close games and games that maybe they should have lost. And Wentz has played extremely well. He's taken a step forward. I think, on the offensive and defensive side, they've been pretty balanced. Even though they've faced some injuries, they've always had creative play calling and running little bubble screens and wide receiver screens and scheming against teams. They've been able to cover up some of their deficiencies. The Eagles have really been a surprise team that I didn't see coming out of the gates 3-1. Now let's keep in mind that their opponents haven't been top flight teams, but they've won nonetheless. My disappointment in the NFC, I'm going with Kevin. It's also the Dallas Cowboys. I think even as a big fan of the Dallas Cowboys, I felt that the offensive line, despite having all of the returning players, has not played up to par. I think Dak Prescott has been put in situations that he's still growing and learning from, although he can pass well and read the rush coming out of the pocket and throw on the run. He's still been put in some tough situations. I agree. Dez Bryant and him have still not have chemistry. And at this point, you start to have to look at Dez Bryant. Is it a Dez Bryant issue? Because him and Tony Romo obviously didn't always have chemistry. And although there were some big plays, Dez Bryant, I don't think that what he's realized on the field exceeds what his talent and potential actually is. So those are my surprise teams in the NFC. My surprise teams in the AFC, I have the Chiefs. The Chiefs obviously have some big wins early. Who saw Kareem Hunt coming? I mean, it seems like the Chiefs every year end up having this player, whether is it Larry Allen? What was his name?
Houston on the defensive end?
No, the running back a couple years ago that was spectacular.
I don't know. Who was it?
Penn State, 27, number 27.
Oh, he's talking about Larry
running
Johnson.
back. Larry Johnson. Whether it's a Larry Johnston or the Chiefs always end up having these running backs that are flash in the pan type of guys. But who saw Kareem Hunt coming?
Priest Holmes,
another guy with injuries. They've always seems to have this player, this running back, this dynamic, 502 yards rushing in the first 4 games, 372 of those yards coming in the second half of games. Alex Smith is a guy to me who's been consistently underrated, and it's weird saying that as a number 1 overall pick, but you're talking about a guy on the 49ers who had multiple coaches and offensive coordinators in his first several years coming out of Utah. This guy, once he got a chance to start with the Chiefs, 8-0 with the 49ers before he lost his job to Colin Kaepernick, and then gets to the Chiefs, starts, I think, 8-0 the following year, 7-0, something like that. And now that he's in Andy Reid, who's a quarterback-friendly coach, you saw what he did with Stunner McNabb and players in that type of system, I think Alex Smith has gotten a bad rap. I think you're really getting to see what happens when he has consistency, when he's able to, make some plays down the field where there's some trust in what the offense is doing instead of just purely game manager. You never want that moniker as a quarterback in the NFL. And I think we don't need to escape the fact that, Justin Houston, Dee Ford, these pass rushers off the edges. Obviously, the Chiefs have been great defensively, both against the run and the pass. And Andy Reid has obviously been a great coach wherever he's gone. I don't think he left Philadelphia necessarily because his coaching ability, as much as there was turnover, quote unquote, lost the locker room, and he just sometimes you just got to hit the reset button. I don't really think that's a knock on Andy Reid. So although they've had some opponents also that aren't, necessarily world beaters, and the 49ers and the Giants, Chargers, things of that nature, the quality of ball they're playing, even against subpar competition, that's usually how you can tell the brand of a team. How do they play even against inferior competition? Do they execute? Do they play to the level of the competition? And I like the Chiefs. And in the AFC, disappointment, I also have to go with the Patriots. Patriots defense has not been what you expected to see, even when they don't have necessarily great individual athletes. Generally, the type of scheme and the type of play style that they play with on the defensive end, with a young defensive coordinator, they have these exotic blitz packages, and they play great in coverage. They're a disciplined team, they're a well-coached team. You're not accustomed to seeing the type of lapses that you've seen for the first quarter of the season. Tom Brady has obviously been Tom Brady, although the offensive line hasn't been what you're accustomed to seeing as well. So I think there's some things that need to be tightened up, but if there's one team that I'm not concerned about, even though they're a disappointment in the first 4 weeks, it is the New England Patriots. They're like the San Antonio Spurs of the NFL. It's a team that's well coached. Their system is proven, regardless of, I don't care if they have to use wide receivers at cornerback. I don't care if they don't have a running back. I don't care if they don't have wide receivers. They're going to have great decision making. They're going to have players that don't panic, and they're going to have players that trust in the system. And those are my surprises and disappointments in the NFC and AFC.
Gentlemen, I'm in a positive mood, so I'm not going to give any disappointments. I think you guys have done a fabulous job in documenting those teams. Couple surprises. I'll give you one from the NFC, the Washington Redskins.
Mm-hmm.
This is a team that I've been extremely impressed with. Now, they haven't been willing to pay Kirk Cousins and give him the money that some of the other quarterbacks in the league have been getting. Let me tell you something right now, Daniel Snyder. You better pay Kirk Cousins. Now, I'm not saying that Kirk Cousins is a top 5 quarterback in this league, but how many more years is he going to have to show you that he is a capable and competent quarterback? Kirk Cousins having another good year this season. Now, the thing that sets them apart, the Redskins, that is, from the past couple years, is that their defense is playing at an elite level. What they did to the Oakland Raiders on Sunday night a few weeks back was about as impressive as a defensive performance as I've seen in a while in the NFL. They're rushing the passers well. I like their secondary. So the Washington Redskins could be a dangerous team if they can get into the playoffs. So I've been pleasantly surprised with them in the NFC and then in the AFC. I think you guys touched on the Kansas City Chiefs, but look out for the Buffalo Bills. The Buffalo Bills, 3-1 right now. I can remember back before the season started when they decided to trade away Sammy Watkins. At that point, it looked like they were just cutting bait with anything that was left from that Rex Ryan regime. They did decide to keep the quarterback in play, and he's been doing well. I mean, I've always
Tyrod Taylor.
Tyrod Taylor. I've always liked Tyrod Taylor's composure. I think I don't think the offensive schemes have been conducive to his skill set. But Tyrod Taylor's got them at 3-1. Now, can they maintain this throughout the rest of the season? Only time will tell. But right now, they're in first in the AFC East. And I think before it's said and done, they're going to have a couple big showdowns with the Patriots to see if they could wrestle away that AFC East from the Patriots. I think who's won it the last 8 or 9 years or 10 years or something crazy like that. But I think if there ever was a year that the Patriots are vulnerable, it's this year because that defense is terrible. Now, they had a better showing on Thursday night against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Oh. They did. But let's be completely honest about what happened tonight. Nick Folk, Okay, it was well documented on Hard Knocks on HBO. Nick Folk was the kicker that Dirk Cutter decided to keep. They wanted to get rid of Mr. Aguayo, who was a top draft pick out of Florida State. They had a kicking competition. Both guys were missing. It's not like Nick Folk actually won the job. He just survived. And you saw it tonight. He missed 3 field goals. That's 3 opportunities. That's 9 points that the Tampa Bay Buccaneers had an opportunity to produce that they didn't. The New England Patriots only scored 19 points. So again, I think the Patriots did survive tonight. Still wasn't impressed with them offensively and defensively. Yes, they did hold Tampa Bay to 14 points, but there were some missed field goals in there as well. So New England, they continue to be disappointing and not meeting the expectations that were laid out. I remember before the season, the questions were, when is New England going to lose a game? Are they going to go undefeated again? Well, right. I think 5 weeks into the season, I think we can see that they're not quite the team that we thought they'd be. So moving on, college football. The docket this weekend is a touch light, but not for myself and Mr. Kevin Cornegay. Big time rivalry in Ann Arbor this weekend. The Michigan State Spartans versus our Michigan Wolverines, our number 7 ranked Michigan Wolverines.
That's pretty high ranking.
Spartans have won 7 out of the last 9 games, by the way. And I can tell you what facilitated that. It was one Mike Hart, former great Michigan Wolverine running back. When it appeared that the Michigan Wolverines would be losing a game, they found a way to come back and beat Michigan State. And then after the game, Mike Hart had to go run in his trap and had the audacity to say that, well, no, it's kind of like when your big brother lets you think that you're going to win. And then, you know, before you know it, they just snatch the the victory from your jaws. And that rubbed Mark D'Antonio, Michigan State coach, the wrong way. And if you think I'm lying, you guys can go ahead and look up his commentary. Just type in Mark D'Antonio Michigan comments. You're going to see this guy was stone-faced and stoic. He said, little brother, huh? Little brother. He's like, it's just starting. It's just, you could see the resolve and you could see that he meant everything he said. Mark D'Antonio has put everything into these games versus Michigan. They supersede Ohio State. They supersede any other Big Ten rival you can think of. And that's one of the reasons why they've been successful. So with that said, this weekend, number 7, Michigan at home. Backup quarterback John O'Corn is in as Wilton Spade is still out with an undisclosed injury. I will start with you first, Sean. Who do you see being victorious in this battle? This is an old school, knock them down, drag out, Big Ten slobber knocker. Who you picking in this one?
I can't get past slobber knocker. Look, you're only going to get that on off the bench. You might get mollywop. You might get slobber knocker. You're going to get terms here you're not going to get anywhere else. Here's my thing. You mentioned John O'Connor, the former university.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. You mentioned John O'Corn. This is a guy, University of Houston. Formerly, this is a guy that, although he's a backup, this is a guy who had a shoulder injury, but people can't underestimate the way that this guy plays. He's a gunslinger. He's going to take some chances. And I think John O'Corn plays well for them. Here's the thing with the Wolverine O-line, though, is that they've given up 12 sacks in 4 games. They haven't.
Next to last in the nation.
Right. Their line hasn't been great, and you have a backup that's just kind of gaining his ground. And so I'm kind of concerned about their O-line, especially going up against an MSU defense that has 9 sacks in 4 games. These guys are going to attack the quarterback You know, their front four, you know, really puts some pressure on the Wolverines. But we can't underestimate the defense that Michigan has played, getting 18 sacks in 4 games. Okay, they're the best in the Big Ten at 4.5 sacks a game. They lead the country, and they're really going to attack a Michigan State University line that is not real formidable. They're not running the ball consistently, and in addition to that, you know, Brian Lewerke, he has 8 touchdowns, 2 interceptions, but he's the team's leading rusher. You never want your quarterback leading your team in rushing. And although he's athletic, he doesn't need to be leading his team in rushing. And I really think with Michigan's defense and, you know, even though MSU's line is good, they haven't faced a defense like the Michigan Wolverines. I think Michigan's defensive speed is going to be a determining factor. And I think Michigan wins this game 28-12. I think Michigan State only gets field goals. They push the ball, but they're going to have to settle for field goals, in my opinion. Although they have some pretty good wideouts in Felton Davis, Darrell Stewart, they're not going to be able to have the time to throw that they really want. And I think Michigan takes this one by a couple scores.
It warms my heart, man. Really warms my heart. Really warms my heart as a Wolverines fan. Kev, it's no secret you are a big-time Michigan Wolverine football fan. I can remember back when we were watching the game. We ordered the game back then. And I want you fans to understand what I just said because I didn't misspeak. We ordered the game on cable. This was back before all the games were available. So we ordered the game. It was the Colorado Buffaloes, led by Cordell Stewart, against a highly rated Michigan Wolverine football fan. It was all but over. Kev and I were celebrating. We were happy. It was $10 well spent. We paid $9.99 for that game. $10 well spent. And lo and behold, one of the greatest plays that ever happened in college football history happened. Yes. Cordell Stewart throws the bomb 60-something yards to Michael Westbrook. For those of you keeping score or keeping count, that's the same individual that beat up Stephen Davis when they were members of the Washington Redskins.
Right.
Yes, he physically assaulted him.
That's a good call.
Physically assaulted him, indeed. One of the worst moments in my sports career, but yet one of the greatest moments as well, because how often do you see Hail Marys like that? So, Kev, what is your prediction for Saturday in this good old-fashioned Big Ten knockdown, drag 'em out battle?
Slobber knocker.
Slobber. You know, I wanted to be easy and save that for another game.
There's going to be some good hitting in this game. It's the first night game between these two teams ever, I believe. And both teams were not particularly happy.
They weren't pleased.
But I have Michigan 17-14 over Michigan State. I don't know how these two teams are going to move the ball. Michigan, they're number 1 total defense in the Big Ten. I think Michigan has the best pass rush in the country. And again, Sean talked about the 18 sacks in 4 games. They get after the quarterback. And they can get after the quarterback in a multitude of ways. They can rush 4. They can bring 5. They can bring the house. I don't know how Michigan State is going to run the football. Michigan, I think, 60 yards rushing per game is what this defense is giving up.
Number 1?
Number 1. They're terrific. I do like John O'Korn at the quarterback position. And I've said this since spring ball. I like him there at the quarterback position. I like his mobility. I like the gunslinger mentality that he had. Obviously, he was having some problem reading defenses at one point, but I think that if he plays more, I think he can make more plays in a Wilton space. So I'm happy that he's at the quarterback position. I want to see Jim Harbaugh open it up a little bit more. I think at times Jim Harbaugh's play calling becomes predictable, and that could put us in some bad situations offensively. In terms of Michigan State, look, they're going to be in this game for a full 4 quarters. There are no blowouts anymore. In particular, when you talk about Michigan State, they play great defense as well. They're third in the Big Ten in total defense, right behind Ohio State. They get after the quarterback as well. They stop the run. They're only giving up about 80 yards rushing per ball game. So it's going to be tough sledding for both offenses to try to move the ball, running or throwing up and down the field. But we got Michigan with a 17-14 victory. Michigan is one of the teams that's not being talked about a lot throughout the country. They're ranked 7, but obviously Georgia has made a big push. They've looked impressive. There's other teams. Washington, University of Washington is getting a lot of pub. USC was getting a lot of pub. They lost to Washington State. It seems like everybody's talking about all these.
What about Troy?
Except, oh, wow, LSU. Boy, that's a floundering program. We can get to them on another show, but they're in some big trouble. But
I didn't mean to take a shot. Yeah, dude.
They're in big trouble. But everyone's talking about all these other top teams. You're not hearing too much about Michigan. So I do expect a 17-14 victory. John O'Corn to make some plays down the stretch. I do think it'll be tied 14-14, a field goal will win the game for Michigan. That'll come at some point during the fourth quarter. It's going to be a nail-biter. Michigan State is a quality football team. They lost to Notre Dame. That's because they turned the ball over. That's a game that they probably should have won. But expect a barn burner at Michigan Stadium, 110,000 strong. It's going to be a lot of fun. And I actually like the fact that it's going to be a night game, prime time, ABC for the nation to watch. This is a great rivalry on the football field, on the gridiron. I know we talk a lot about Ohio State, Michigan, and deservedly so. But Michigan State, terrific rivalry, and I think the nation's going to be able to enjoy it. There's going to be some good hitting. These teams, they don't miss a lot of tackles either. So there's going to be some good hitting out there, and expect maize and blue to be able to get the W.
Kevin, will Mateen Cleaves and Draymond Green be in attendance?
Draymond Green, my man.
What about Mateen Cleaves?
That's a good one right there. He got into some trouble. Hey, did he? He got into some trouble, right? Recently, Mateen Cleaves.
Yeah, I think they convicted him for having no neck.
Oh.
Listen, if there ever was an individual that had a head with the shape of a great white shark, it would be Mateen Cleaves. Oh, if there ever was an individual that resembled a great white, it would be Mateen Cleaves. Listen, fellas, as you mentioned, Kev, this is going to be a physical battle. I think if you would talk to personnel, and coaches, and players for both teams, they'll tell you that this is the most physical game that they play. Even more physical than the Ohio State games for the respective teams. So this is going to be a physical matchup because of the personal nature of the game for Mark D'Antonio and Jim Harbaugh. He is physicality personified. So both programs know how big it is. It's an early litmus test of who's going to have a leg up in the Big Ten East. Michigan State, certainly not out of it. That loss to Notre Dame was a non-conference loss. So there's a lot on the line for Michigan State. But I think the deciding factor will be this. Number one, Michigan in their last, I believe, 3 games, or I think they've only had 3 night games. This is a team that's undefeated at Michigan Stadium. They just don't lose night games. Michigan Stadium is a different place. The Big House is a different place at night in prime time. And number 2, as Sean mentioned earlier, the best unit that will be on the field is that Michigan defense. It's the number 1 total defense in the country. It's the number 1 rush defense, as well as the number 1 pass defense. That pass rush is going to be relentless. Chase Winovich. You got Rashawn Gary off the edge.
Rashawn Gary.
Okay. You got Rashawn Gary, who is an absolute monster. You got Mo Hurst there in the middle. And then you got, remember this name, fellas, Devin Bush.
Yes.
He is one of the fastest linebackers you will ever see. He's an
From South
absolute
Florida. Yeah.
missile. He's an absolute missile. That Michigan defense is an elite defense, and that will be the determining factor for this game. So I have it Michigan 21-13. But to echo your sentiments, it's going to be another nail biter. And I do not, trust me, and I say this with every last bit of conviction in my body, I do not put anything past Mark D'Antonio. This team will be ready to play. And let's remember, Michigan State, in another classic moment in rivalries, they came up with one of the most improbable victories that you ever see a couple years ago when they blocked a punt and took it back to the house with 10 seconds left for a walk-off victory after it looked like they were going to be losing. So I will not ever put anything past Mark D'Antonio. Fellas, moving on. MLB. We are in MLB playoff time, and I know the Major League Baseball hasn't gotten too much run on our show, but hey, now that they've played their 300 regular season games, I think it's time for us to talk about when it counts.
It's America's pastime.
I'm gonna start. It is America's pastime, and it just so happens that they played 380 games before they get to.
Let's give them double the games. It's just America.
So listen. I'm gonna need your predictions for the winners, as well as the champion. Well, the American League champion, and then the National League champion, and then ultimately who you think is going to win the World Series. So I'll start with you, Sean, big time Yankee fan. Give me your predictions for who's going to win the World Series.
I have Cleveland and LA making it to the World Series, not because they're obvious picks, but why they're obvious picks. Whenever you have great pitching rosters, a great bullpen, and great closing in the Major League Baseball, you're going to have a great product on the field. And I don't care if it's the 1995 NLDS Mariners Yankees when you pitch Randy Johnson 4 or 5 times in a 5-game series, or if it's the Diamondbacks with Schilling and Randy Johnson, if it's the Detroit Tigers. Great pitching is key and paramount when you talk about Major League Baseball down the stretch. If you can get a lead and you can really rely on pitching 3-4 pitchers, middle relief, getting a hold, starting to get another guy in there to mix it up and change speeds and change locations, you really have a great chance to win. And you look at Kluber, you look at Trevor Mayer, you look at guys that have great breaking balls. You're talking about 12-6, span. You're talking about guys that, because they pitch strikes and their breaking stuff is so good, change up off of a fastball, things of that nature, can get ahead in the count early, change levels, change location, then change speeds. You really put defenses, off balance. I mean, offenses off balance. And with a young team like a New York Yankees who, their plate discipline hasn't been the best, although they have some bats in the lineups, some of their plate discipline has been in question. They have great middle relief, great pitching, but you really have to have discipline and take advantage of clubs when they make mistakes. And Cleveland, having won 22 games in a row, that's not something that happens by accident. This is a great club. This is a team with revenge on their mind, having lost to the Cubs in the best World Series I've ever watched. You have, Cleveland, to me, has revenge on their mind, and they're on a mission. And I think although you have Boston and Houston and some great teams there, I think what you end up seeing in a ALCS is Cleveland versus Houston, with them edging them out, and you're going to see Cleveland in the World Series. I think you're going to see LA in the National League. They have great pitching, and although Clayton Kershaw is traditionally not great in the postseason. I think this is the season that he steps out, similar to the way Barry Bonds did against the Angels, a Hall of Fame type talent, where you have years under your belt, and he's going to go into the postseason healthy, which has been a question for him. I really think you see the Dodgers bats wake up. You have a matured Yasiel Puig. You have great defense. You have great offense. You have great pitching. And I think that Cleveland edges them out 4-2 in the World Series.
Kev, give us your MLB predictions.
Cleveland versus Los Angeles. Look at pitching. I think both teams, tremendous starting pitching. Right now, the Dodgers bullpen, they've been a little shaky down the stretch. Since August 25th, the Dodgers have been a bad baseball team. But I think they've regained their footing here the last couple of weeks, heading into the playoffs, 104 wins. Pitching. I mean, they're going to throw out Clayton Kershaw, game 1, Rich Hill, game 2, and Yu Darvish. Remember, they acquired Yu Darvish in July. And so you got 6'5", throws 95, 96 fastball. He can get it up there to 99. He has 5 different pitches. They have to. He has so many different pitches. They have to condense what he wants to do. He's overthinking on the mound out there. But I do like the Dodgers in the National League. I don't like the division series matchup for the Dodgers. They're going to play the Diamondbacks. The Diamondbacks defeated Colorado.
Divisional foe.
It's a divisional foe. And they've beaten the Dodgers. Yeah, they swept the Dodgers.
Played well.
Right. The last 2 times they played in the regular season. And they've looked dominant. So it'll be interesting to see what Clayton Kershaw is able to do tomorrow. I do think they'll outlast Arizona. And then they will face the Chicago Cubs in the LCS, and then they'll move on. I think it's Clayton Kershaw's time. You can't – your number one rival, the Giants, you can't sit and watch Madison Bumgarner dominate for the Giants and then not be able to answer the call. We think you're the best pitcher in baseball. I think he proves it in this postseason. The Dodgers have the most flexible lineup left in baseball. I mean, they can take their the number 1 spot, Curtis Granderson. They can move him down to 7. They can move Puig up to 2. Corey Seager, they can move him to 5. I mean, whatever Dave Roberts wants to do, depending on who the pitcher is, he can mix and match that lineup. And defensively, they're a lot better than they were the last couple of years. So I do like the Dodgers. And then I would go with Cleveland out of the ALCS. They're battle-tested. They won 22 games in a row. Pitching, they have a great starting staff. They have the best bullpen left in baseball, and so that's what you need when we talk about the playoffs. How long can your starter go? If he can go 6, you need somebody to give you 2 innings to get to your closer. And so I do like the Indians and the Dodgers in the World Series. I'm going Dodgers in 7 because Game 7. Cleveland won't have the DH. I think that in a pitcher's ballpark that plays big, a team that we bring over from the American League, I think that can hurt them down the stretch in a Game 6 or Game 7 scenario. So Dodgers win the World Series.
Great commentary, fellas. Great commentary. I'm going to leave you with this. I have the Dodgers versus the Cleveland Indians in the World Series. And I'm going to tell you this. Cleveland is not going to be denied this time. Last year, they played a Chicago Cubs team that was arguably one of the better teams that we've seen in recent history. And it looked like at one point, Cleveland could win that series. And I don't think any of us saw that coming.
They were up 3-1, right?
Any of us saw that coming. And so as you guys have eloquently stated, pitching is paramount in the postseason. What beats flexible hitting? What beats great hitting? It's great pitching. So I think Cleveland is going to handle business in that World Series before they get to a Game 6. I have them beating the Los Angeles Dodgers in 5 games. I just don't think they're going to be denied for a second straight year. And any team that goes on a 22-game winning streak in Major League Baseball, you're talking about clubs that are out there night in and night out. We're not talking about like the NBA, where you have the best players taking off primetime games. You're talking about 22 nights in a row that a team is playing. So I think this is the Cleveland Indians' year to get it done. What? Did I say something
come
wrong?
on, man.
Did I say something wrong?
You're talking about players that take games off, night in and night out in the NBA. We're talking about pitchers that only pitch every couple of days. We're talking about platoon players. Come on, we're talking about you just gave them 300 games, man. I don't need you talking about Iron Man streaks.
Listen. The bottom line is this: you're playing every night.
Okay.
So if you have a player that takes a night off, I think we can understand that because they're playing every night. In the NBA, if guys have to play a back-to-back game, they act like it's the end of the world. They act like it's the end of the world.
Well, I think there's a little bit more cardio in the NBA and MLB, man.
You're playing.
Let's be honest about it, man.
You're playing every night of the summer. It doesn't make a difference. You're playing a professional contest every night.
Well, they play offensive defense on the same play.
And for the most part, these guys are out there. The stars are out there. Very rarely do the stars sit out unless they're injured. I'm going to need you to stop defending the NBA so much, which is the reason why.
These guys are out swatting gnats off their head in the outfield versus playing offensive defense on the same play. That's all I'm saying.
Well, if you're talking about guys like Isaiah Thomas and Kyrie Irving, they don't play defense. So,
I didn't mean to digress. I got it.
It could be argued that they're doing the same thing as guys in the outfield, just standing there looking aloof. Anyways, thank you guys for joining us. This has been another fun, exciting episode. We look forward to getting back with you guys next week. Until that point, for myself and my illustrious co-hosts, we will see you guys next week. Have a wonderful weekend. Peace.
Mm-hmm.